June 8, 1952, 2:37 p.m., 300 black inmates rioted at Sing Sing Correctional Facility. 19 guards were bleeding in the corridors, and Warden Harold Matthews ran to cell block D, screaming for Bumpy Johnson. Wait, because what Bumpy demanded in exchange for stopping that riot was so powerful that 12 guards resigned within a week. Prison rules changed forever, and every official record of what happened that day vanished from the files. Sing Sing in 1952 wasn't a correctional facility. It was a warehouse for human beings. 2,043 inmates crammed into a building designed for 1,500. Cell blocks that smelled like sweat, blood, and desperation. Guards who saw black and Puerto Rican inmates as animals, not men. A system that ran on fear, brutality, and the understanding that nobody outside those walls gave a damn what happened inside. Cell Block D was the worst. 300 inmates, mostly black, packed into cells built for 2, but holding 3, sometimes 4. 18 guards controlled the block. 12 of them were part of what inmates called the night shift. Guards who beat inmates in the showers, withheld meals, threw men into solitary for looking at them wrong. The administration knew. Warden Matthews knew. Nobody stopped it because nobody cared. Bumpy Johnson wasn't supposed to be in cell block D. He was supposed to be at Dannemora, maximum security, upstate, isolated. But a transfer mix-up in February 1952 put him in Sing Sing instead. Cell 47, third tier, cell block D. The guards knew who he was, Harlem's Godfather. The man who'd fought Dutch Schultz and walked out of Alcatraz. They thought they could break him. They thought he was just another inmate. They were wrong. To understand what happened on June 8th, you need to understand what Sing Sing was in 1952. The prison sat on the Hudson River, 30 miles north of New York City. Built in 1826, famous for its electric chair, Old Sparky, which had executed over 600 men. But in 1952, Sing Sing was more famous for something else, its brutality. Black inmates made up nearly 60% of the population. The guards were 98% white. The food was garbage. Medical care was non-existent. Inmates worked 10-hour shifts in the prison factory for 7 cents an hour. If you complained, you got solitary. If you fought back, you got beaten. If you survived, you learned to keep your head down and count the days. Bumpy Johnson didn't keep his head down. He'd been at Sing Sing for 4 months. In that time, he'd already made a reputation. He didn't join gangs, didn't pick fights, but he also didn't take abuse. When a guard named Thompson tried to shake him down for commissary money, Bumpy stared at him for 10 seconds without blinking. Thompson walked away. When 3 inmates tried to jump him in the yard, Bumpy put 2 of them in the infirmary without breaking a sweat. The third one ran. The inmates respected him. The guards hated him, and Warden Matthews watched him carefully, wondering when Bumpy Johnson would become a problem he couldn't ignore. June 8th, 1952, started like any other day. Morning count at 6 a.m. breakfast at 6:30. Work detail at 7 o'clock. 300 men shuffling through cell block D. Following the routine, staying invisible. Bumpy was assigned to the prison library. Quiet work. He spent most of his time reading Shakespeare, Machiavelli, history books. The guards left him alone because he wasn't causing trouble, but trouble was coming. At 2:15 p.m., a 22-year-old inmate named Isaiah Carter was mopping the second-tier corridor. He was skinny, quiet, serving 3 years for petty theft. No enemies, no gang affiliations. Just trying to survive. A guard named Sullivan walked past him. Sullivan was one of the night shift. 6'2", 220 pounds, mean drunk, who took pleasure in making inmates suffer. Sullivan stopped, looked at the wet floor, looked at Isaiah. "You missed a spot," Sullivan said. Isaiah looked down. The floor was clean. "No, sir, I didn't." "You calling me a liar?" "No, sir, I just..." Sullivan's baton came down across Isaiah's shoulders. Hard. The kid dropped to his knees. Sullivan hit him again and again. Other guards watched. Nobody stopped it. 300 inmates in cell block D heard Isaiah screaming, heard the baton hitting flesh, heard Sullivan laughing. Bumpy Johnson was in his cell, reading the prints. He heard the screams, put his book down, walked to the cell bars, looked down at the second tier, saw Sullivan beating Isaiah Carter, saw the kid curled up on the floor, saw the blood, saw that black baton rising and falling, rising and falling. Bumpy made a decision. He gripped the cell bars. Didn't yell, didn't shout, just gripped the bars and waited. Around him, other inmates were doing the same, watching, waiting. The entire cell block was silent, except for Isaiah's screams and the sound of that baton, that sound, like a drumbeat, like a countdown. Then an inmate on the first tier shouted, "Enough." Sullivan looked up. "What did you say?" "I said enough. Leave the kid alone." Sullivan walked toward the first tier. "You want some too?" That's when it started. 300 inmates started banging their tin cups against the cell bars. The sound was deafening. Metal on metal, a rhythm that echoed through the entire prison. Bang, bang. Sullivan froze. Other guards rushed into the block, batons raised. But the noise didn't stop. It got louder. "Lock it down," one guard yelled. "Lock down cell block D." But here's what they didn't know. Here's what nobody realized until it was too late. The lock system in cell block D was old. Built in 1910, manual levers, controlled from a central station. One guard operated the locks for the entire block. That guard's name was Jenkins, and Jenkins had just left his post to help Sullivan. An inmate named Marcus, serving life for armed robbery, was a locksmith before he got caught. He'd been studying the lock system for 2 years, waiting for a moment like this. When Jenkins abandoned his post, Marcus slipped out of the mess hall line, walked into the control station, and pulled every lever. Click, 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 click. 300 cell doors unlocked simultaneously. For 5 seconds, nobody moved. 300 inmates stood in their cells, staring at open doors, not believing what just happened. Then someone stepped out. Then another. Then 50. Then 100. Within 30 seconds, 300 men flooded into the corridors of cell block D. The guards panicked. 18 guards against 300 inmates. They tried to form a line, batons raised, but the inmates weren't attacking yet. They were just standing there, filling the corridors, staring at the guards who'd beaten them, starved them, humiliated them for months, years. Sullivan backed against a wall. He was still holding his baton, but his hands were shaking. Isaiah Carter was still on the floor, bleeding. An inmate picked Isaiah up, carried him to safety. Another inmate walked up to Sullivan, stood 6 inches from his face. "You like hitting people who can't fight back?" the inmate said quietly. Sullivan swung his baton. The inmate caught it, twisted it out of Sullivan's hands, threw it across the corridor. It clattered on the concrete, spun, came to rest against the wall. Then he punched Sullivan once. Sullivan went down. The inmates erupted, fists flying, guards getting swarmed, blood on the concrete. Here's what the guards didn't know about that baton. While everyone was focused on the riot, while chaos spread through cell block D, Bumpy Johnson walked down from the 3rd tier, picked up Sullivan's baton from where it had fallen, and carried it back to his cell. Nobody saw him do it, or maybe a few inmates saw and said nothing, but Bumpy took that baton, that symbol of brutality, and he kept it. Warden Matthews was in his office when the alarm went off. 2:22 p.m. riot in cell block D. He grabbed his radio, called for backup. 20 additional guards rushed to the block. They found chaos. 300 inmates had taken control. 18 guards were cornered in the control station, barricaded behind a steel door. 19 guards were injured, some badly. blood in the corridors, inmates smashing windows, overturning bunks, shouting demands. We want food that's not garbage. We want medical care. We want the beatings to stop. We want Sullivan and his crew fired. Matthews watched from the second-floor observation deck. He had options. He could call in state troopers, bring in tear gas, storm the block with overwhelming force, but he'd seen prison riots before. Attica would prove it 15 years later. When you storm a riot, people die, inmates die, guards die, and the press asks questions. Matthews didn't want to answer. He needed someone to calm this down, someone the inmates would listen to. He scanned the crowd. 300 men, angry, righteous, ready to burn the whole prison down, and then he saw him, Bumpy Johnson, standing in the back of the corridor, not shouting, not fighting, just watching. Arms crossed, calm, like he was observing a chess game while everyone else was playing checkers. Matthews made a decision. He ran down to cell block D, pushed through the guards, walked right up to the steel door separating him from 300 rioting inmates. He could see Bumpy through the bars. "Johnson," Matthews yelled, "I need to talk to you." The noise didn't stop. Bumpy didn't move. Matthews tried again. "Johnson, I know you can hear me. I need your help." Bumpy turned his head slightly, looked at Matthews, raised one eyebrow, then walked through the crowd toward the door. The inmates parted for him. Bumpy stopped 3 feet from the warden. "You need my help," Bumpy said. His voice was quiet, but Matthews heard every word. "Yes. Why would I help you? Because if I call in the state troopers, people die. Inmates die. You don't want that." Bumpy tilted his head. "You're right. I don't want that. But here's the thing, Warden. These men have been beaten, starved, and treated like animals for months, some for years. You knew it was happening. You didn't stop it. So why should they listen to me? Why should they stop now?" Matthews swallowed hard. "What do you want?" Bumpy smiled. Not a friendly smile, a shark smile. "I want a meeting. You, me, and 10 inmates I choose. We sit down, we talk, and you listen to every demand they have. No interruptions, no dismissals. You listen, and you fix what's broken." "That's it?" "No," Bumpy said. "I also want Sullivan and his crew fired, all 12 of them, gone by the end of the week, and I want it in writing that beatings stop, food improves, and medical care is provided. Real medical care, not a guard with a Band-Aid." Matthews stared at him. "I can't promise all of that. Then I can't stop this riot." "Johnson, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," Bumpy interrupted. "You're asking me to convince 300 men to go back to being punching bags. I'm asking you to stop punching them. That's reasonable." Matthews looked past Bumpy at the 300 inmates. Some were bleeding. Some were holding makeshift weapons. All of them were watching this conversation, waiting to see what Bumpy would do. "If I agree," Matthews said quietly, "can you stop this right now?" "Yes." "How?" Bumpy turned around, faced the 300 inmates, raised his right hand, palm out, like a conductor stopping an orchestra. The noise stopped, not gradually. Instantly, 300 men went silent. The only sound was breathing. Bumpy spoke. His voice carried through the entire block. "Listen to me. The warden has agreed to meet with us. 10 of us. We're going to sit down, lay out our demands, and he's going to fix what's broken. Sullivan and his crew are gone by the end of the week. Beatings stop. Food improves. Medical care starts. This is what we wanted. This is what we fought for. We won. Now we go back to our cells. We let the guards do their count, and we wait to see if the warden keeps his word." An inmate in the front shouted, "What if he doesn't?" Bumpy looked at Matthews, then back at the inmates. "If he doesn't keep his word, we do this again. But this time, we don't stop until the governor shows up." The inmates murmured. Some nodded. Some looked skeptical, but nobody argued. because Bumpy Johnson had just gotten them more in 30 seconds than they'd gotten in 30 years. One by one, the inmates walked back to their cells, slowly, reluctantly. But they walked, 300 men filing back into their cages because Bumpy Johnson told them to. The guards watched in disbelief. Matthews watched in disbelief. Within 10 minutes, cell block D was silent. Matthews looked at Bumpy. "How did you do that?" "They trust me," Bumpy said. "You should too." Bumpy walked back to his cell. Cell 47, third tier. When he got inside, he placed Sullivan's baton on his small metal desk, black wood, scuffed from years of use, one end wrapped in worn leather grip tape. He looked at it for a long moment. That baton had broken bones, split skin, terrorized men for years. Now it sat in an inmate's cell. A trophy, a reminder, a symbol. That night, Matthews called an emergency meeting with the deputy warden, the head of security, and the prison board. He explained what happened, explained Bumpy's demands, explained that if he didn't follow through, the next riot would be worse. "Fire Sullivan and his crew," one board member said. "We can't just fire 12 guards because an inmate demands it." "Then you're going to have a dead warden," Matthews said quietly. "Because that's what happens next time. They'll kill me. They'll kill the guards. And when the press finds out why, when they find out about the beatings, the starvation, the brutality, this prison will be shut down, and you'll all be looking for new jobs." The board went silent. "Fire the guards," Matthews said. "Improve the food, hire a real doctor, and make it happen this week." 3 days later, Sullivan and 11 other guards were fired. No explanation given. They just disappeared. The food improved. Not gourmet, but edible. A real doctor started visiting the prison twice a week. Beatings didn't stop completely, but they became rare. Inmates who were beaten could report it without fear of retaliation. Bumpy Johnson met with Warden Matthews and 10 other inmates on June 15, 1952. They talked for 4 hours, laid out demands. Matthews listened, took notes, implemented changes. The meeting was never recorded in any official document. There's no transcript, no record. It's like it never happened, but it did happen. Every inmate at Sing Sing in 1952 knew it happened. "I was in cell block D that day," an inmate named Robert Jenkins said years later, interviewed in 1971. "I saw Bumpy pick up that baton. I saw him carry it to his cell like it was a prize, and when Sullivan got fired 3 days later, Bumpy showed me that baton, said, 'This belongs to us now. It doesn't hurt anyone anymore.' That's when I understood. Bumpy didn't just stop a riot. He took their power and made it ours." And 3 months later, on September 10, 1952, Bumpy Johnson was released from Sing Sing 3 months early. No explanation, no parole hearing. The paperwork said administrative release. Nobody questioned it. Bumpy walked out the front gate, got into a car, and drove back to Harlem. Or maybe it wasn't a favor. Maybe Matthews knew that keeping Bumpy in Sing Sing was more dangerous than letting him go. Maybe he understood that some men are too powerful to cage. Years later, in the 1970s, a journalist tried to find records of the June 8th riot at Sing Sing. He found nothing. No incident reports, no injury logs, no disciplinary actions, just a gap in the records, like that day never existed. He tracked down former guards. Most refused to talk, but one guard, retired, living in Florida, agreed to an interview. "You want to know about June 8th? The guard said. "I'll tell you. I was there. I saw 300 men take over cell block D. I saw guards get beaten. I thought we were all going to die. Then I saw the warden run to Bumpy Johnson's cell, and I saw Bumpy walk out into that corridor, raise his hand, and stop the whole thing with 8 words. 'We won. Now go back to your cells.' That's it. 8 words. And 300 men obeyed. I'd never seen anything like it. That's when I understood. Bumpy Johnson wasn't just another inmate. He was the kind of man who could stop a war with a whisper, and the warden knew it. That's why Bumpy got released early. That's why the records vanished. Because if the public knew an inmate had that much power, they'd start asking questions the prison system couldn't answer. The journalist also found Matthews's deputy warden, a man named Frank Morrison, living in upstate New York. "Harold Matthews told me something after that day," Morrison said. He said, "I just watched a man with nothing, no badge, no gun, no authority, command 300 violent men into silence. That's not criminal power, that's leadership. And we don't have a cell strong enough to hold that." He was right. You can lock up a man's body, but you can't lock up respect. And Bumpy Johnson had more respect than any warden I ever knew. Sullivan's baton stayed in Bumpy's cell until the day he was released. Some inmates claimed Bumpy took it with him when he left. Others said he left it behind as a message. Either way, after September 10th, 1952, that baton was never seen again. But the story of what it represented spread through every prison in New York. The story of how Bumpy Johnson took a guard's weapon, turned a riot into a revolution, and walked out of Sing Sing 3 months later, while 12 guards lost their jobs. The story became legend, and legends don't need official records. June 8th, 1952, 300 prisoners rioted at Sing Sing. 19 guards bled in the corridors. Bumpy Johnson stopped it all with one demand, and every official record disappeared like it never happened. If this story hit you, smash that subscribe button. We're telling the Bumpy Johnson stories history forgot. Drop a like if you think Bumpy was the smartest man in Harlem.